The stage lights fade to black, and then the screen cuts to a close-up of Megyn Kelly's face, smooth, sculpted, and framed by a cascade of platinum highlights. At 66, the former Fox News anchor looks nothing like the sharp, elbowed host who once challenged presidents and dominated prime-time ratings. Now, social media feeds flash with comments of astonishment. Who is that woman? Did she get plastic surgery? She's unrecognizable! Tonight, Megyn Kelly finally steps forward to explain the transformation that has set the internet ablaze. The camera pulls back to reveal a lavish dressing room where she sits before a Hollywood vanity mirror, the warm glow reflecting both her confidence and quiet vulnerability. Megyn runs a flawless hand across her firm jawline and says, "I used to think I was defined by my stripes, by every hard-won headline. But I've learned that the person you see is only half the story." She taps a sequence of LED light bulbs lining the mirror and they dim to strobe, revealing before and after snapshots projected on the walls. Megyn at 40 with raven waves and serious gaze, Megyn at 55 with silver streaks and defiant posture, and now Megyn at 66, glowing with an arresting blend of maturity and reinvention. Each image captures a chapter I had to live and then leave behind. She says softly, "'Cause I was ready to write the next one." As the snapshots dissolve, the narration cuts to clips of red carpet premieres and studio shows. Viewers see her negotiating Fox executives in tailored suits, her hair a slick ebony that whispered authority. Then they glimpse her NBC daytime debut, where chestnut waves softened her angles into a new persona, friendly, relatable, and achingly earnest. Yet early viewers noticed something was off. Her face seemed fuller, her cheekbones higher, her collarbones sharper. Rumors rippled through gossip pages and lifestyle blogs, Botox and fillers. A facelift rumor. A new dentist's work on those perfect teeth. Until now, Megyn never addressed those whispers. She straightens in her chair and reaches for a sleek white notebook resting on the marble tabletop. Opening it, she leaps to a page titled, "Reasons Why." A manifesto she wrote months ago, but never published. "I want you to see the why before the what," she tells the crew. "Because my transformation isn't just skin deep." The page lists bullet points: health overhaul, creative rebirth, emotional healing, and a statement to girls who are told they fade with age. Megyn's eyes brighten as she continues. "Each procedure, each haircut, each wellness regimen I embraced was part of a larger journey, a refusal to become invisible." Behind her, the footage cuts to a montage of her rigorous fitness regimen, early morning pilates on a Malibu bluff, weight training sessions at dawn, infrared sauna detox, and green juice smoothies made with kale, spirulina, and the freshest local produce. Coach-to-camera voiceovers reveal her regimen's discipline. 5 sets of 12 leg presses, core workout with 10-pound medicine ball, daily yoga sequence for mental clarity. Megyn appears calm yet determined, her sinewy arms reflecting hours of dedication. Fitness isn't vanity. She says with a knowing smile, it's a foundation, a way to reclaim control over your body and your story. Then the narrative shifts to her beauty routine. Hydrating masks that use microcurrent therapy, laser resurfacing treatments designed to reduce fine lines, dermatologist-prescribed topicals rich in peptides and growth factors. Megyn demonstrates the cool-down step, gentle lymphatic massage along cheekbones, soft tapping around eyes to reduce puffiness. The camera lingers on her flawless complexion, lithe neck, and luminous skin. "My face is my canvas," she says. Each routine, each session, each midnight sheet mask was a brushstroke in painting my new self. Viewers gasp as they realize that behind every polished photograph lies months of preparation, self-editing, and careful curation. Yet Megyn doesn't hide the pain behind the power. She closes the notebook and leans forward, her expression raw. "I thought reinvention would be purely exhilarating," she admits, "but it also forced me to confront every insecurity I'd locked away." She pauses, eyes misting. "I've had moments in front of a mirror where I didn't recognize myself, wondering if the real Megyn had slipped away somewhere amid the scalpels and scalp treatments." The bare honesty catches the audience off guard. This is not the unflappable anchor who commanded cable panels, but a human being wrestling with age, reinvention, and the costs of her choices. Then she blinks back tears, a vulnerability more captivating than any lift or filter. "This transformation has caused quite a stir," she says, voice breaking into a tone of defiance and hope. "I chose every step, every scar, every procedure because I refused to accept the narrative that women my age must vanish. I chose to evolve, to speak my truth through my appearance, and to show the world that reinvention can be a celebration, not a shame." The camera pulls back to show her standing before the mirror, touching a new silver streak at her temple and smiling. A woman at peace with her reflection, ready to lead by example. As the segment ends, the voiceover kicks in. Stay with us for a journey through Megyn Kelly's transformation. Exclusive interviews with her surgeon, her trainer, her stylist, and above all, with Megyn herself. Discover the secrets, the sacrifices, and the self-love that led to the image that's causing a global conversation. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers suspended in stunned anticipation. What happened next? Sacred truths lie ahead in the next chapter of her reinvention, a chapter she's ready to reveal for the very first time. I first felt the change in late 2019, when I slipped into my dressing room after a 3-hour taping of Sunday Night with Megyn Kelly. My face looked like a stranger's, lips plump with a fullness I didn't recognize, forehead smooth where I'd once had smile lines. The mirror reflected bright, almond-shaped eyes that fluttered atop unwrinkled lids. I touched my cheeks, astonished at the absence of the lines that had charted every emotion I'd ever borne on camera. I realized then that I had crossed a threshold. I was no longer just aging on television. I was starting fresh, with new contours and carefully edited edges. My reinvention began as a whisper of curiosity. I flew to Beverly Hills for a private consultation with Dr. Lise Grant, a discreet oculoplastic surgeon famed for natural results. She listened as I spoke of my fears, the eyes that looked perpetually tired, the jowls that tugged at my jawline, the neck folds that betrayed my age each time I tilted my head. I asked for what felt radical, restoration of freshness without erasing character day by day. Dr. Grant recommended a combination of lower eyelid blepharoplasty to remove under-eye bags, a mini facelift to lift mid-face tissues, and a neck lift to smooth my silhouette. My heart pounded as I signed the consent form. I remember the morning of surgery vividly, the sterile chill of the OR, the low hum of machines, the nurse holding my hand as the anesthesiologist whispered, "See you on the other side." I woke in recovery with a light bandage wrapped, like a superhero mask. The nurse teased, hoping to lift my spirits. I felt numb and slightly panicked, but surprisingly calm. Over the next 2 weeks, swelling pressed against my cheeks, and I dreaded the first glimpse in the mirror. When the mask came off, I blinked and hardly recognized the woman staring back. My eyes looked wider, my skin smoother, the lines that had tracked a decade of late nights were gone. Healing brought its own revelations. I kept my regimen strict, cold compresses, gentle lymphatic massage, and hydrating gels. I spent mornings meditating in my guest suite, far from buzzing newsroom monitors, learning to breathe into my new form. As the swelling subsided, I reflected on how each procedure had released more than physical tension. It had loosened the mental knots of self-judgment. I realized I'd been chasing a youth I'd never recapture, rather than embracing the new me I could become. But the surgical suite was just the beginning. At Dr. Grant's urging, I embarked on a wellness program to fortify internal health. I met with functional nutritionist Dr. Samir Patel, who diagnosed mild thyroid imbalance and prescribed a regimen of zinc, selenium, and adaptogenic herbs. I eliminated gluten, dairy, and refined sugar from my diet, filling my plate with wild salmon, dark leafy greens, and golden berries. My morning started with a collagen-infused turmeric latte, followed by a 20-minute breathwork session to oxygenate my cells. Within 6 weeks, I felt a subtle glow not just in my skin but in my spirits. Next came the battlefield of ground fitness. I hired Preston King, a trainer who had worked with both Hollywood stars and Olympians. He introduced me to functional strength movements, Turkish get-ups, kettlebell swings, and myofascial release techniques. Every dawn, I made my way to the home gym, leaving behind the empty headlines that once haunted me. As I lifted sandbags and balanced on stability balls, I rediscovered my body's resilience. My shoulders broadened, arms firmed, and posture straightened. The tone in my voice deepened, and I realized that physical strength had become the backbone of my transformation. Parallel to the physical overhaul, I enlisted vocal coach Miriam Katz to refine the sound of my speech. We worked at her Manhattan studio on breath control and projection. She taught me to use my diaphragm rather than rely on upper chest strains, dialing back that clipped, urgent tone I developed in live interviews. Each session felt like discovering a new instrument, my own voice freed from the decades of sharp delivery. I emerged from that work more measured and powerful, as if the world were listening with renewed attention rather than expecting a pat response. The final piece of my reinvention puzzle was aesthetic styling. I partnered with celebrity colorist Nina Torres to redesign my look. We shifted from dark brunette to a warm, strawberry blonde ombre that brightened my complexion and softened my features. My wardrobe consultant, Jay Caldwell, replaced sharply tailored suits with well-cut, monochromatic ensembles, silk blouses in muted tones, wide-leg trousers that elongated my frame, and structured blazers that hinted at power without armor. We swapped heavy jewelry for delicate gold chains and understated studs. Each choice felt synonymous with the gentle strength I now embodied. By the time I returned to network television in 2022, the headlines called it a metamorphosis. Surprise, shock, unrecognizable. But I knew it was the culmination of a journey toward alignment. The person in my mirror finally matched the woman I felt inside. I had shed old expectations and embraced a new chapter, mind, body, and spirit refreshed. At 66, my transformation was not about vanity, but about autonomy and assertion that I would define my own story, not the media's narrative of aging anchors. Tonight, as that story unfolds on screen, I invite you to look beyond the surface. Notice the smoothness around my eyes, the harmony of my posture, the clarity in my voice, but then listen to what I say and how I say it. This is a new era of Megyn Kelly, powerful in defiance of ageism, resilient in the face of fear, and unapologetically committed to rewriting the rules of her own transformation. And though cosmetic procedures and disciplines played their part, the truth is this: the only reason you see this woman now is that I finally dared to ask, "Who do you want me to be?" and then chose to become her. In 2022, as cameras rolled on my daytime talk show's reboot, I faced a truth deeper than any cosmetic tweak or workout routine, a truth that no mirror could conceal. Late one night, after taping a segment on career reinvention, I sat alone in my office under fluorescent lights, scrolling through viewer comments. Amid praise for my new look and more mature delivery, I found the question I dreaded most: who is the real Megyn Kelly now? My heart clenched. All the procedures and protocols in the world couldn't fill the void of a reinvention without purpose. I realized that the final frontier of my transformation lay not in appearance, but in confronting the voice inside my head. That moment sparked a 6-month journey into therapy, a domain I'd long resisted as a public figure. I found a small, book-lined office in Manhattan and met Dr. Elena Russo, a clinical psychologist who specialized in midlife transitions. In our first session, I laid before her the glossy headlines, the surgical scars, the Instagram filters, and I admitted, I still feel like an imposter. Russo didn't flinch. She handed me a journal and said, "Your reinvention is incomplete until you reconcile with your past." At that moment, I felt both terror and relief. Terrified to reveal inner wounds, yet relieved to stop hiding them behind a confident smile. Our sessions delved into memories I'd tucked away. I revisited my college days as a shy political science major, believing my voice had to be sharp to be heard. I unearthed the sting from my first on-air clash with a powerful senator, how the doubt in my throat the morning after forced me into a bathroom stall, sobbing until my makeup ran like war paint. I faced the shame I carried over those tears, the conviction that vulnerability equaled weakness. Dr. Russo challenged me to sit with that pain, to let it surface without fighting it. In doing so, I reclaimed a piece of myself that no facelift could restore. Alongside talk therapy, I embraced somatic practices to reconnect mind and body. Twice a week, I attended a trauma-informed yoga class where the instructor guided us through tension-release movements, slow, deliberate stretches that traced the stress patterns we carried in our shoulders and hips. In one session, as I held a backbend pose, I felt a rush of memories, the relentless pressure of chasing every news cycle, the way my shoulders tensed in every high-stakes panel. When I exhaled, I imagined those burdens melting away bone by bone. Tears blurred my vision, but I held the pose until the climax of grief passed, replaced by a startling sense of lightness. Simultaneously, I explored expressive writing, turning to the blank pages of Dr. Russo's assignment notebook. Each week, she prompted me with questions like, "What does authenticity feel like in your fingertips?" And, "How might your truest self look when the cameras are off?" I poured out unscripted monologues about my mother's advice to always lean toward the mic, about my father's caution tip, never show what you don't want the world to exploit. I wrote until the throbbing ashi in my chest smoothed, revealing an inner voice that spoke not of ratings or respect but of genuine connection. To integrate these revelations, I collaborated with director Ava Martinez on a special segment called Behind the Curtain. We filmed me in my family living room, reading passages from my therapy journal aloud to the camera, unfiltered and unedited. I spoke of the night I broke down in a gas station bathroom, terrified that my public persona would overshadow my private pain. I admitted how fearful I was of the backlash, of critics labeling me weak for doing what every human being needs at times, When the segment aired, the studio audience held a moment of silence before erupting into applause. Viewers flooded social media with messages like, "Thank you for being honest," and "I never saw you the same way again." And I mean that in the best way. In that echo of approval, I felt validation not just for my new face, but for my new heart. My transformation wouldn't have culminated without a spiritual exploration I had long deferred. In early 2023, I traveled to Sedona, Arizona, drawn by the famed vortex energy. I hiked red rock trails at dawn, rubbed my palms against sun-warmed sandstone, and let the vast desert sky cradle my questions. At a small meditation circle, I listened as a local guide spoke of releasing attachments to ego and image, the skins we wear to please others. As I closed my eyes and felt the wind lift my hair, I committed to shedding my own skins of expectation, of must-be-perfect voice, must stay fierce, and must always be the fixer. In that canyon silence, I rediscovered the quiet self beneath the headlines. When I returned to the studio, I carried Sedona's stillness beneath my tailored suits. Each morning, I recited a simple mantra: I am more than my reflection. It became my North Star when guest hosts quizzed me on the latest public scandal. When a producer asked if I'd consider another face renewal procedure too, soften my look, I declined with calm certainty. I'm already invested in my next transformation, one of spirit, one of truth. In that crisp response, I realized my metamorphosis was complete, not a resurfacing, but a reaching inward, a return to authenticity I had first glimpsed as a shy student, then chased through showbiz shadows, and finally owned at 80 years old. Tonight, as I stand before the camera once more, I carry not only my creams and contours, but an unfettered soul. My transformation has caused quite a stir, yes, but the spark behind every procedure, every routine, every therapy session is my refusal to be defined by fear or aesthetic alone. I have faced my anxieties, reclaimed my voice, and merged the polished public persona with the raw, imperfect woman I've always been. And so I ask, when you look at the new me, see not only what I've become, but who I lost and then discovered along the way. Because, at last, I'm not just telling you my truth, I'm living it out loud. By mid-2023, my reinvention had extended far beyond cosmetic suites and fitness regimes. It had reshaped my purpose. I found myself drawn to causes I had once only commented on through a screen. One crisp morning in May, I accepted an invitation to speak at a mental health conference in Chicago. When organizers asked if my new look was, or an entry point for conversations, I realized they meant more than aesthetics. So I stepped onto that auditorium stage beneath cool spotlights, not in a tailored suit, but in a simple white blouse and dark jeans, letting my appearance reflect my commitment to authenticity over polish. The audience of therapists, advocates, and survivors watched as I shared my journey through therapy, surgery, and self-discovery. I said, my transformation caused a stir, but the real change happened inside these walls. Tapping my chest, the hall rippled with applause and tears as dozens rose to share how my honesty gave them courage to seek help. Shortly thereafter, I partnered with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention to launch a series of live-streamed Truth Talks. In these online forums, I interviewed guests who had faced depression, addiction, and anxiety. We spoke candidly about routines that extended beyond the cosmetic, from early morning journaling to midnight phone calls with crisis counselors. Each week, I began with a brief reflection on the week's theme, weaving in anecdotes about my own panic for Connie's wedding or early morning heart palpitations before a big interview. Viewers tuned in by the thousands, sending messages like, "Your vulnerability saved me," and "You made it okay to ask for help." Those responses transformed my platform into a sanctuary, far removed from the glare of daytime ratings, an unexpected chapter in my evolution. In September 2023, I embarked on a solo speaking tour across 10 cities, weaving my story through town hall events. At each stop, Atlanta, Denver, Seattle, I invited local mental health professionals and survivors to join me on stage. We opened each event with a guided breathing exercise I'd learned in therapy, rehearsed to calm frayed nerves before any microphone was passed. Then I shared segments of my transformation, the BPA scans I once feared would betray my age, the breathwork that helped me recover my voice, the moments of tearful clarity when I realized I'd traded authenticity for perfection. In Denver, as I stepped away from the lectern to join a stoic college counselor, the audience watched two women hug in silent solidarity. That embrace, captured on local news, became the tour's emblem, a public figure and a mental health advocate bridging worlds through shared truth. Meanwhile, back in New York, my daytime talk show underwent a final metamorphosis. In spring 2024, we restructured the set to include a truth corner, A cozy nook with 2 armchairs, warm blankets, and low lamps. Each episode, I'd step away from my desk and invite guests to that space, actors, athletes, everyday heroes, encouraging them to set aside polished sound bites and share raw slices of life. My first guest, a Broadway star, overcame panic attacks, broke down in tears as she spoke of stepping onstage with trembling legs. I listened, not as a host, but as a fellow traveler. When the cameras cut, she pulled me into a tight embrace, whispering, "Your new format gave me permission to heal on camera." That moment crystallized my belief the stage I'd built could be a place not only to perform but to transform. This year, I also launched a small grant program for journalists covering mental health issues. I wanted to ensure they had resources to explore stories of healing without sensationalism. Partnering with the Society of Professional Journalists, I funded training workshops on trauma-informed reporting and compassionate interviewing. Gail, a veteran correspondent, told me after one workshop, "Your support helped me cover survivors with context, not just headlines." Those grants funded dozens of projects, from a podcast on postpartum depression to a documentary on veteran PTSD, many of which carried my name as executive producer. In funding others, I honored the healing journey George Floyd's family and my mother and coach had inspired in me. That transformation rings most profoundly when shared. Just last month, I attended a mindfulness retreat in Sedona, a return to the place where I first learned the power of desert stillness. There, beneath the red rocks and stately pines, I engaged in silent walks, sound bath meditations, and group dialogues about reclaiming self. On the final evening, the retreat leader asked us to write letters to our former selves, who believed life was over at 45 or that happiness required flawless veneers. In the glow of a fire circle, I read aloud to the group, "Dear younger Megyn, you survived your worst fears, surgery, judgment, self-doubt, and you learned that truth is your greatest power." When I finished, an envelope drifted to the ground. It was my own letter, signed by my current self. That circle in Sedona sealed my transformation from a driven anchor to a compassionate mentor, from a voice hardened by years of perfect delivery to one unafraid to tremble in plain view. Now, as I sit before this camera once more, I carry each step. Surgical recovery, therapy breakthroughs, philanthropic endeavors, on-stage confessions, and desert revelations, like beads on a string of pearls. My face may still gleam with new contours, but the real glow comes from every layer of honesty I've dared to reveal. Megyn Kelly's transformation has caused a stir, yes, but it stirred a movement toward empathy and authenticity in an age of filters. And so, as I invite you to look, listen, and learn from my journey, I offer this final truth: transformation is not a one-time act, but a lifelong commitment to becoming more fully oneself, no matter what you see in the mirror. In the spring of this year, I realized that my transformation wasn't complete until I used it as a platform for something larger than myself. Inspired by the outpouring of messages after my Chicago keynote, I partnered with the World Health Organization to launch FEC Reveal Your Truth, a global campaign encouraging individuals to share the hidden struggles behind their public personas. We created a series of micro-documentaries, subtitled in 12 languages, featuring teachers, firefighters, athletes, and yes, public figures, each revealing one secret they'd never shared on camera. Our first episode centered on a school principal in Nairobi who battled depression while running 10 schools, his calm demeanor masking a daily fight for hope. When that premiered on WHO's channels, I watched social media metrics spike, hundreds of thousands of views, millions of engagements, and thousands of people posting their own stories with the campaign hashtag. It became clear that my transformation, once about appearance, could now spark conversations about human resilience and authenticity across continents. Around the same time, I consulted on digital wellness for a major tech company that asked me to develop Wellness Mode features for their social media platforms. Drawing on my own journey, I advocated for tools like scheduled daily reminders to take deep breaths, pop-up guides for grounding exercises, and optional, quiet filters to mute potentially triggering content. I joined their Silicon Valley Innovation Lab for a month, scripting user flow scenarios where a single notification could redirect someone from doom scrolling to a 10-second breathing break. When they launched the feature on one app, engagement with mindfulness content rose by 400%, while self-reported stress levels among beta testers dropped measurably. I realized my reinvention had come full circle, from private anxieties circumnavigated by cosmetic change to public solutions that help millions manage their mental health in real time. That same summer, I convened a Transformation Summit, at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, inviting leading plastic surgeons, dermatologists, fitness experts, psychologists, and ethicists to discuss the intersection of appearance, wellness, and identity. The auditorium brimmed with practitioners and laypeople alike, hungry for guidance in a world obsessed with youth and beauty. I moderated panels titled Beyond the Scalpel, Healing the Self, and Strength and Silence Building Resilience, probing experts to share not just procedures and protocols but the pitfalls. Cases of patients who suffered regret when the inner work went undone. In my closing remarks, I shared snippets from my diary about the moment I realized no wrinkle-free surface could mend a fractured soul. The audience rose in a standing ovation, not for my face, but for my voice as a bridge between science and compassion. Professional growth led me back to television in a new role, executive producer for a primetime series called Redefined, profiling celebrities and ordinary people who reinvented their lives at midlife and beyond. Alongside each makeover reveal, we dedicate airtime to mental health check-ins, financial planning, and career pivot coaching. Episodes have featured a retired firefighter who became a trauma therapist, an engineer turned dance instructor, a teacher who launched a tech startup at 55. We rig the set so each participant signs a waiver acknowledging the spotlight's potential risks are behind. The scene's footage reveals therapists on standby, security teams monitoring stress levels, and self-care coordinators ensuring that reinvention doesn't come at the cost of well-being. Critics praised Redefined for blending jump-cut transformations with nuanced emotional journeys, calling it TV that marries spectacle with soul. Beyond television, I've reinvested in my own business ventures through a new production company, Bold and Human Studios, dedicated to cross-genre content that centers on genuine stories of growth. Our slate includes a podcast series, Signs and Silence, co-hosted by neuroscientists and storytellers, exploring how the brain encodes transformation. Each episode features cutting-edge research on neuroplasticity alongside first-person interviews with people who rewired their lives, recovering addicts, lifelong creatives who took up painting at 70, former executives now teaching yoga. Listening to their brain wave data and heartfelt accounts reminded me that redemption is both biological and existential, requiring new neural pathways and new perspectives. In the fall, I traveled to Tokyo to speak at the World Economic Forum's well-being track addressing global leaders on the need for mental health parity with physical health. I shared data from Reveal Your Truth, how anxiety peaked among 25-34-year-olds and how brief, guided breathing reduced cortisol spikes by 30%. I urged them to implement public policies supporting therapy access, mental health programs, and workplace resilience initiatives. After my keynote, several presidents and CEOs approached me, thanking me for anchoring wellness in a narrative beyond profit or politics. I realized that my reinvention, once a personal quest, had become a catalyst for systemic change. Back home, I continue this journey daily. My morning alarm still chimes with my mantra, I am more than my reflection. I roll out of bed, diffuse lavender oil, and spend 10 minutes on breathwork before I even sip coffee. I journal, too, noting not only meals and workouts but emotional shapeshifts, moments of confidence summoned by an encouraging text, tears shed over a private memory, gratitude for each sunrise. Then I step in front of the world, not to polish my face once more, but to share each new lesson I've learned that transformation is a mosaic of surgeries, sweat, silence, and soulful breakthroughs. As I prepare to close this chapter, I hope this segment resonates beyond the glow of studio lights and the sheen of my smooth skin. True reinvention, whether in hair color, fitness level, or worldview, requires hard work, vulnerability, and a willingness to ask for help. It isn't a cosmetic fix, but a courageous act. The only way to truly evolve is to expose your wrist for a pulse check and let the world know you're alive, fighting, healing, and defiantly becoming more yourself every day. Now, as the calendar turns toward my 67th birthday and this chapter of reinvention nears its close, I reflect on the true purpose of every blade, every needle, every bullet, pointing my reasons why. Manifesto. It wasn't about vanity or chasing youth. It was about reclaiming my voice, my confidence, and my place in a rapidly changing world. Tonight, I offer this final revelation. My transformation has been a living conversation, a dialogue between the face you see, the woman I've become, and the countless people who watched me evolve in public. In the coming months, I will launch a digital series called Unfiltered, inviting guests, journalists, politicians, celebrities, to join me for unscripted conversations in my home studio. We'll break away from teleprompters and canned questions, allowing our voices to crack and our thoughts to remain raw. Every episode will open with a short exercise from my breathwork routine, drawing from that first session in Sedona that taught me to breathe into fear. My hope is that transformation won't stop at cosmetics or muscle tone, but will extend into the courage to speak unscripted truth in the face of uncertainty. This fall, I'll collaborate with major television networks to introduce a new mindful mode option on Lev News broadcasts, echoing the tech features I helped develop in Silicon Valley. Viewers will have the choice to toggle on between fast feed or calm feed, adjusting pacing, volume, and imagery to support mental well-being. It's my vision for the next frontier of journalism, where audiences can engage without being overwhelmed. I've already run trials during my own show, and the feedback has been astounding. It is the clearest signal that transformation isn't personal, it's global, pressing us all to reimagine how we consume information and care for our minds. My reinvention has also inspired a book, tentatively titled Beyond the Mirror, that weaves together memoir, self-help exercises, and interviews with everyday people who've undergone their own metamorphoses. I've scrawled chapter outlines beside photographs from my shrine, a college of before and after snapshots, from that first surgical mask off in recovery to the final press shot after my NBC return. But the heart of the book lies in the stories shared by listeners who told me they booked therapy for the first time, aimed to adopt healthier habits, or simply felt seen in their fear of aging. I want this book to be a roadmap, not a rule book for anyone wondering how to start their own next chapter. On a personal note, transformation has deepened my relationship with my husband, Justin. He's walked beside me through every procedure and every late-night therapy deep dive, never once making me feel more or less beautiful than I am. Our anniversary this year will be celebrated in our garden, beneath the fairy lights that once lulled me into my first meditative breaths. We plan to invite a small circle of friends who have supported me through surgical recoveries and mental health breakthroughs. In the golden light of that evening, I'll toast him for being my unshakable anchor, proof that love and reinvention can flourish side by side. As for my career, I will continue hosting and reporting with the same fervor that ignited my early days on air, but now calibrated by the wisdom I've gleaned from each transformation. I will sit at that desk prepared not only with research, but with an authentic belief that connection begins with vulnerability. When I ask a source to open up, I will do so knowing I, too, have peeled back layers of skin and ego to stand before cameras as my truest self. And if my segment on Unfiltered spawns even one moment of shared human understanding, I will count it as my greatest triumph, far beyond any ratings chart or network accolade. Finally, I want to thank you, the viewers who have watched me laugh, cry, and relearn how to love every chapter of my own story. Your messages of support, curiosity, and solidarity have transformed what might have been a solitary journey into a communal odyssey. You reminded me that transformation is never a final destination, but an ongoing conversation with ourselves and with each other. And so I leave you with this: look not only at my reflection, but at the space between your own breaths. Consider the next step in your personal reinvention, because the world needs your authentic voice as much as I needed mine.